It's Platt, and today we head to North America's oldest brewery. That's next to Platt's Beer of the Week. So the particular beer we have today is Molson Canadian. Comes to us from the fine folks at Molson Brewing. Molson Brewing, of course, is part of the giant brewing conglomerate Molson Coors. Between all their various brands, they're the third largest beer producer in the world, so just get a massive behemoth. Now, Molson Brewing itself is the oldest continuous brewery in North America, has a real rich history. Dates back are all started in 1786 when it was founded by John Molson in Montreal, Canada. Now, the story goes back a few years earlier in 1782 when a young John Molson leaves England to come to North America and chase his dream. He arrives in Montreal and quickly gets a job at the Thomas Lloyd Brewery. Now, it takes him a couple years to learn the business, but when opportunity arrives, he strikes. He takes his inheritance from his parents and buys the brewery in 1784. Now, what he does next is kind of strange. In 1785, he actually shuts the brewery down for a while. He realized he needed to go back to Europe, get some new equipment to get better ingredients, and one of the things he did was he brought back barley seed back to Montreal and gave it free to the farmers so they'd grow it. He basically created his own source of quality barley malt. In the next year, he finally decides to go live, start selling his beer. His first beer was an ale. This is back in those days. This is before people really started doing the lagering thing, especially in North America. His first beer sold for 5 cents a bottle. Quite a bargain if we only had those days around again. Besides being a great brewer or great businessman in the brewing industry, he was just overall a great businessman and quickly began divesting his businesses. He got into the lumberyard business, began making loans to other merchants, and slowly growing the empire to the point where in 1816 he decided to bring his 3 sons on and they created the Molson corporate entity. One of the first businesses they got into was the steamboat business. They actually ran the first steamboat company in Canada. They transported goods back and forth between Ontario and Quebec. Also, they probably might have shipped a few kegs of beer at the time. They also quickly got into the banking business. Again, they were making loans already to local merchants, and they created the Molson Bank. And the Molson Bank actually stuck around for probably about 100 years or so. They eventually sold to the Bank of Montreal. But one of the things they did, and other banks did at the time too, we're talking about 150 or so years ago, was they made their own banknotes, i.e. their own money. There was actual Molson money out there, and you could take Molson money and use it to buy Molson beer. So if anybody thinks like Anheuser-Busch has gotten too big or whatever, at least they've never owned a bank, where you had your money in or whatever. So, but the Molson family likes to just keep growing these different businesses. In 1903, they started exporting their beer. They came out with something called Molson Export at the time, which was a variation on that original ale, and that became their first beer they started exporting. Again, over the years, business kept growing. They were always buying, getting into new things. And in 1955, they purchased the Montreal Forum, which also housed the Montreal Canadian hockey team, which was part of the deal. So they own the arena and the team. For those of you that are not huge hockey fans, the Montreal Canadiens are basically the New York Yankees of hockey, one of the oldest, most treasured franchises. Now, eventually down the line, the corporate entity, Molson, would sell the team, but in 2009, a couple of the heirs, Andrew and Jeff Molson, ended up buying the team out of their own personal pocket, and they own the team. I believe they still own the team today. Besides owning the Montreal Canadiens, though, the two brothers are still part of the company. They are the 7th generation of Molson to still run the brewery. So even though it's a massive corporate behemoth, it's still kind of a family-owned business. And if you have a little more time and want to check into it, it's kind of fascinating, all the different businesses and stuff. Like I think their lumberyard business They eventually sold to Home Depot, so that tells you how long around it's been. I think they're in Canada one of the largest beer distributors, besides being the oldest and largest brewer. So definitely interesting stuff. Real quick, let's talk about some of their other beers. Again, they're part of the whole Molson Coors chain, so they have plenty of brands to fill out the portfolio, but Molson does have a few other beers themselves. First is Molson Dry, 5.5% ABV. If you're, I'm going to say in your mid-40s, a little bit older, you might remember in the 90s we had a dry beer fad. There's Bud Dry, Coors Dry, Michelob Dry, this, that, and the other. Those beers, one of the selling points was, again, didn't have a sweet finish to it, a little drier finish, but it also generally had a 0.5% of alcohol more, a little bit extra alcohol. And that's actually one of the selling points they address in the marketing, is that you get a little bit more. Next is Molson Cold Shot, which is just that more of the more. It's a 6% ABV lager. Unlike Molson Dry, it's not the dry finish. This beer has more body, but a little more alcohol. This is probably just a bigger full body lager that they might throw a little more malt, regular barley malt in, maybe a little less adjunct, kind of give it, again, more of the body. Next is Molson Ultra, 3% ABV. It's a low-carb beer. It's their take on Michelob Ultra. It cracks me up, some of these companies that just like, whatever the name of the brewery is, we'll just slap Ultra, and that's our alternative. It seems to me like you're almost kind of helping advertise Michelob Ultra when you do it, but what have you. Finally is Molson Export. It is their spin on that original ale. It's a blonde ale, 5% ABV. And again, it was just kind of an homage to the beginnings of the brewery. Well, before we try this particular beer, though, let's check out the stats. So real quick, I just wanted to talk to you about, at the end of my videos, I generally, try to suggest you hit my social media, this, that, and the other, but I also ask if you have a beer that you want me to try, leave it in the comment section. Well, I just want to let you guys know that I haven't forgotten that. I still look for the beers, but the supply chain's still messed up. Even in a big market like Vegas, there's still a lot of empty shelves. So I just want to let you guys know I haven't forgotten. Someone recently suggested just barley wine in general. I've done one of those videos before, but I don't need an excuse to drink a barley wine, so that will definitely be coming down the line soon. I'm backed up a few videos, but that will definitely be coming in the next few weeks. One of my local viewers suggested a beer from Joseph James, a brewery out here. Unfortunately, that brewery did not survive the pandemic. There's still some 6-packs of their beer floating around, even after they've gone broke, but as far as finding their complete line, unfortunately we missed the boat on that one. Lastly, a couple of beers have been suggested. One was called, I think, Presidente, one was called Seagrass or something like that. Gentlemen, I'm looking for them. Just again, the shelves have been kind of bare lately, and that's why a lot of the beers we've been doing lately have been kind of major brand stuff, just because that's what's on the shelf. But I haven't forgotten, so if you have a beer in mind, please list it. I will do my best. I have a list, so just have a little faith in me. Well, enough about that. Let's drink a classic Canadian beer. All right. Well, that pours pretty straightforward. Nice clear beer. A little golden color. Finger really white. Foamy head. Little malt in the nose. No hops. Pretty straightforward beer. Let's give it a try. That's not too bad. Reminds me a little bit of some of the straight, it actually kind of has a European lager style, even though researching this, they claim this American lager has a little bit of that European, it's not a funk to it like the green bottle Europeans that get slightly skunky. And it's in a brown bottle, so it's not the skunkiness, but it has a little bit of that mouthfeel, a little more body than just a straight light beer. Just just different enough from like Bud Miller and Coors that, you know, I guess you can say, well, this is a true Canadian legend then, or whatever. Again, stylistically, you know, similar beers, but there is kind of a mouthfeel, a body to it that is slightly different than, you know, the major U.S. beers. Overall, I'd drink 4 or 5 of these at a hockey game for sure. You're not going to get any hops really on the back end, even though this is, you know, fairly balanced beer. Just nice, you know, again, this beer's kind of designed to watch sports with in a sports bar kind of thing, and it kind of works on that level. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or again, if you have a beer you want me to try, trust me, I will try to find it. Please leave in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Till next time, bottoms up.